We are here on a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom under finding good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, excuse me. We'll take announcements.
Daniel Tribe for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jalissa Bird is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
Joel Jackson on behalf of the mothers. Serena Burks, present and ready, Your Honor.
Stacy Zabala on behalf of Zach. I believe he may be present at least in audio, as he's not on video, and I don't anticipate real negative information. I don't think we have to go off of YouTube at this time.
Okay. All right, then what do we have news since our court report was filed?
I did talk with placement. There were some concerns with Zach at school. Basically, he's been skipping school and missing class, and it's just been a concern with placement. So we talked about setting up a meeting to just a plan to keep him going to school and just try to get him back on track of how he was doing, a couple of months ago. Other than that, it seems like he's doing pretty well. He does, have some talking back and, redirections at placement, but overall, he seems to be doing well in placement. It was mentioned that he would like to be placed with a staff that worked at his previous placement. I haven't confirmed with that staff if that staff was still interested in being placement. It was just kind of new information last month, so I needed to follow up to get more information. So that's kind of where we're at currently.
Good morning. This is Dr. Barada, administrator and owner of his placement.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I just want to reiterate what Ms. Bird just said. She and I have had many conversations about those things. Everything that she just mentioned are areas of concern for Zach. There are areas where he's doing a whole lot better, and then there are areas where we seem to be going backwards. But Ms. Bird just echoed everything very well, and we are in working relationships, talking on a regular and consistent basis to try to get Zach all of the supportive services that he needs. I think the biggest area of concern now is him wanting to go to the placement from a previous placement, and none of that information has been confirmed with us, but it is what is being said as of now.
Okay. Okay, all we can do is just look into that and just see what there is to it. So, okay. Anything else, Ms. Bird?
No, as far as contact with Miss Serena Burks, Zach still has requested not to have contact. He did ask, how she was doing, if she still had her dog. So I was able to provide that information. So I'm kind of communicating between the two, and hopefully, if we could set up some type of, phone call or meeting. He's said he's interested, and then kind of on the opposite end said he's not interested. So I think he just has a lot of emotions tied around that he's anticipating not wanting to and wanting to at the same time. As far as Ms. Burke, she stayed in contact with me through the last couple of months. We are still having issues with finding a counselor. In Texas, we're not able to do it just because of the, I believe it's called the LPC code. And so counselors in Texas cannot do virtual counseling since they're in Texas and Ms. Burks is in Colorado. And then we're kind of running into the same situation in Colorado with our services being, or we're requesting services in Texas and then the counselors being in Colorado. So we're still trying to work out a way of paying for those services, but that's also been an issue.
All right, Mr. Jackson, anything to report today?
No, my client reports that she's reached out to the department as far as trying to get the counseling set up. I guess the $1 million question I have, we'd already approached counselors here in Texas about doing virtual. They told us pursuant, I guess, to their ethics or their guidelines, they're not able to do that. Have a Colorado person visit with them virtually about their counseling. So the $1 million question I have is can the department just not pay a Colorado counselor to handle her individual counseling?
Can St. Francis get that approved? Can they try to contract with somebody?
Yes,
Right.
ma'am, we have tried to contract with several people in Colorado. Ms. Burks has provided us several names. They are refusing to contract with us. We're kind of at a loss. This is not the only case we're having this problem with in the state of Colorado. So I mean, we're still working on it, still trying to, we've got our provider relations team working on it to see if we can find anyone to do it. The other option is once Zach agrees to do some family therapy, his therapist could facilitate that. But we could only do that through Zach's therapist.
Okay. I don't know what else to do. We'll keep turning over the stones, or maybe we'll get there with Zach where he wants to have some family therapy.
Is that
Judge-
something you guys would like me to mention with Teen and Family Services? Those are the ones who provide the services that provide the counseling services for Zach. That's his individual therapy as well as his targeted skills. And they do provide it. We have a couple of other youth that they do the services with virtually. I do have a parent that's not here in Texas that we use. Would you want me to I can connect them with you, Ms. Bird, if you would like, Mr. Hanson, who's the director. Would you like me to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Any avenue we want to look at.
I think what needs to occur though is Zach is going to have to agree to that counseling, because we can't force him to have family counseling at his age. It wouldn't do him any good. He wouldn't engage, and then he'd lose his trust in his current counselor.
And I will say that the therapist that he does see right now, it did take some time for him to get kind of used to him. His name is Mr. McDaniel. He sees Zach at school. I will also be honest, while Zach is not going to school like we need him to be on the days when he knows that it's Mr. Torres's day to be at the school, somehow he's always able to be found on those days. So maybe what I could do, if you guys think so, I would like to talk to Mr. McDaniel about it personally and just have him bring it up in a session with Zach and just kind of see where that goes, because he really does he and Mr. McDaniel have a really good working relationship. It took some time, but we got there with it.
Yeah, I think that's a place to start.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Ms. Zavala.
Your Honor, I was able to Zoom with Zach and he reports doing really well. Roommate situation is good. He said medicine for sleep is helping. He was very interested in exploring this potential placement, and I know Ms. Bird has that info and is going to be looking at that. He may have, it may be possible that person would be a great contact for him and is a great contact. They are having regular communication and it's going well and it's helpful. He may have a stronger idea of placement than she may have. She may think they're just communicating. So I know that Ms. Bird's working on getting clarification on that. And then he was interested in some things like some more genes and music stuff. And so I forwarded that to Ms. Bird as well. He had said that he wanted to be present today, which is why I forwarded the link. But he also at the very end of the communication kind of made it seem like, well, maybe not. So it wouldn't have surprised me either way, whether he was here or not today. But he does report doing well, and he seemed good.
And if I could gauge in on what Miss Stacy is saying, he did say that he needed some clothes. We just got him some new jeans and stuff last week. So he did get what he needed for that. I think the biggest concern with his, and I'm glad that you said it to kind of make sure everybody's on the same understanding with placement, because Zach's behaviors have escalated, because in Zach's mind, he was only going to be here for a couple of months because this other person was getting ready to adopt him. So when that did not happen, it was almost like, well, why do right? Because I'm not going to get to go anywhere. So that was the reason why I feel like his behaviors have escalated. Our treatment director also feels the same way. And I know Ms. Bird and I literally just talked about this for almost an hour last week of why we feel like this is happening. But I really believe that that's a reason for his escalated behaviors, because in his mind, I should be going somewhere else. I shouldn't have to still be in a residential treatment facility. So I do think that. I will also add, we did a med review, and Ms. Jaleesa, I did forward it to you. He did get a PRN, as needed med for his anxieties. So when he starts to escalate, we do have that available that we can give it to him. He did talk to Dr. Kalopa, and she did explain it to him what the usage of it would be if he started to get anxious, if he started to get aggravated. So he did agree to it. So we do have that now here at the facility as needed to help kind of control some of his anxieties and frustration.
Thank you.
All right, then, today we're going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator. And I'm going to continue his current placement. Certainly willing to look at this other situation. I think everybody needs to just explain to him that these things don't happen overnight, that we have to look at all this. There's a lot of background stuff we have to do, and he might as well get settled in for the time being, because it's not going to happen anytime soon. He can still have that contact with that individual. I don't have any problem with that. I just think we got to talk him down off the ledge a little bit.
Judge, just to make it clear, I mean, my client has reached out to Jalissa, trying to get this counseling lined up. I mean, it's no fault of anybody's. She's really working on it. She wanted it to be clear that she wants this child back in her life. And she's, you know, whatever services aren't being handled is no fault of her own. It's just, and I think there's even been an issue with a parenting class or trying to get that set up. And so we're prepared to go forward and all. We're trying to make a move to the extent that we're able to have this child returned to us. And I just ask for whatever help that we can get to make that happen, or to make this therapy happen, if that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been the problem all the way through. We've had a difficult time establishing a service provider. So it's not, you know, isn't Ms. Burke's fault. It's not Ms. Bird's fault. It's, you know, it's just what it is. So, okay, then, as it stands right now, I'll see everybody back on July 2nd of 2024 on a 9 o'clock docket for our final. I sort of have a suspicion that we may be looking at an extension in the case, just because Zach's not ready and we haven't made, you know, we haven't gotten into family therapy and some other areas that we probably need to. So if you all want to circulate about an extension in advance of that hearing, that's fine with me. It's just, everybody's doing what they can do. So if we just don't have enough time and need more time, then we'll, you know, I think we can find extraordinary circumstances to extend the case. All right. I appreciate everybody. So July 2nd, 2024, that'll be our next hearing. Could be a final, could be a final, could be an extension. We're conducting this through Zoom. We are live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Yolanda Novak is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
All right, and Ms. Capps is present. Ms. Grant was in the waiting room earlier, but I don't see her right now, but I'll send a message to her.
Thank you.
Ryan Turman on behalf of respondent father, Brina Bellamy. I am present and ready. My client does not appear present, and I've had no contact with him.
Stacey Zabala on behalf of Jaden.
All right, then, what do we have new since the court report was filed?
Trying to think where to start. Apologize. We were still waiting for the state of Colorado to send us the completed home study for the ICPC. They, in their last update, they did state that it should have been completed by April 25th. I've checked and I have reached out to our contact person, and she is out of the office until tomorrow. So I will follow up with her again to see if she has received it from them. The last thing that they mentioned, there was nothing concerning. They just needed to finish up some of the interviews, review the QII, and the home inspection was still pending. Jaden, when I spoke to him last, he was doing well at placement. He didn't admit to me that he had started counseling, but I have received therapy notes that he started back in February. They did get a new male counselor. He's been seen about twice a month, and he's been doing group sessions. He doesn't always engage with the group sessions, but he is attending them. So I was glad to hear that he's doing that. Ms. Capps has still continued to work her services. She has one parenting class left in the evaluation to be completed with the provider for parenting classes, and then she'll be finished. And she also is in the second round of her 6-week sessions for counseling due to her new job. She's kind of rescheduled those, waiting for her new insurance to kick in to be able to complete those. Mr. Boleyn, I've had no contact with since last June. I've mailed letters, tried to make contact with him, and nothing in return from him, ma'am.
All right. Still haven't had Ms. Grant log in. Ms. Capps, is there anything that you want to talk about today?
Yes, my mom is supposed to be in here as well. I guess she's still stuck in the waiting room. Jackie Cronin. I'm so sorry.
That's right. I'll let her in. Is there anything else you need to address? I've let her in. I'm just waiting for her to connect through.
No problem. So yes, I would like to bring something up. I've had a really hard time getting a hold of my attorney. I honestly have not spoken to her but once since this whole thing has started. And I have sent emails and phone calls and I've gotten nothing in return. And I have a lot of questions that only my attorney can talk to me about. So I was wondering if I could request, because I know in July it's our final hearing for Jaden's case. So I would really like a mediation, if possible, between me and my mom and the attorneys. And my attorney will be present, so I can actually get some of my questions answered, because I haven't spoken to her. It's a little frustrating.
Okay. I understand that. The case would be sent to mediation automatically.
Okay.
So we can just address that though and say, it needs to be mediated by a certain date.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's go ahead and just deal with that. It should be, let's just say, mediated prior to, let's say June 20th.
Yes, ma'am. That sounds good.
And that will get everybody together. And sometimes that's kind of all it really takes, is to just try to get everybody together.
Yes,
Okay. Anything else that you need to address today?
no, that was it.
Okay. And we will also communicate to your attorney that you really want to speak with her.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And Mr. Terman?
Sorry, Judge, I've not been able to track down my client or have any communication with him. So I really have nothing to report.
Okay, Ms. Zavala.
Your Honor, I generally Zoom with Jaden, but when it came time for our Zoom, he really wasn't interested in getting on camera, but I had a very quick phone call with him. His concern is the same as it has been for a while. He really wants to go to Grandma Jackie, and that's where the ICPC is pending. It sounds like things are headed in the right direction. We're just waiting for it to be finalized. And then he said, if I can go to her, maybe Mom can mail me some more clothes and shoes. But that was the extent of our conversation, but he did sound very good.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like hopefully that ICPC is getting close to being completed and all that. So by the time maybe y'all got a mediation date, that'll be done, and we won't be working with, unanswered questions. All right, then I will, like I said, order the case to mediation by June 20th. Continue the department as temporary managing conservator, find a continuing danger to send the child home today. Make finding the department is using reasonable effort. To reunify the family. And our final date is July 9th of 2024. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. The case is in extension, so we will need to go forward on or before that date. Okay, thank you all very much. And Ms. Capps, I never could get your mom fell out. She must have, I'm not sure what happened. She may have been having an internet problem or something, but I never could get her connected.
Okay, I can fill her in. Thank you so much, Judge Baker.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Judge.
Set for our final, we are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. And excuse me, we are live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready on.
William Taylor for Tony Helsom, mother, and I'm here and ready. Ms. Helsom is not. I've had no contact with her, Your Honor, but attempted my efforts have kicked back on me, but I am present and ready.
Bailey Sapien on behalf of Kent Hillsong. My client has completed an affidavit of relinquishment that I believe has been filed with the court. I do not anticipate him to be here today, but I'm present and ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Luke.
Shelby Stashy with CASA.
All right then, Mr. Trout, you can call your first witness.
Call Alexis Valenzuela.
I was the investigator assigned to the case.
How did the department become involved with this child in this case?
Law enforcement had requested immediate assistance.
Okay. And what was that due to?
That was due to an altercation that had occurred between Luke and his grandmother, and so we were requested to find placement for this child.
Okay. And the grandmother's name, what was it?
Toni Hillsome.
And did you find out at a later date that she is actually the adoptive mother of Luke?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll try to refer, just to keep things from getting confused, we'll refer to as mother in this case. Were you able to speak with Ms. Hillsome?
I did, yes.
And what was the conversation like? Did you explain why you were there?
I did, yes. At the time, initially, we were looking to figure out a plan for Luke, and she was pretty adamant about not letting him back into the home.
Okay. Did she already have some plans in work for what was supposed to happen with Luke?
Yes.
What were those?
He was supposed to go to Oregon with his biological father a few days. I believe it was that Monday, and we had received the report on a Saturday. Okay.
Did you ask if she would allow Luke to stay with her for a few days while we figured things out?
I did ask, but she declined.
Okay. And did she explain to you what had happened as far as the argument fight or what had gone
on? My understanding, it was due to Luke's behavior.
Did grandmother or mother have anything else to say about Luke and his behaviors?
No, just that he was aggressive and disrespectful towards her.
Where had Luke stayed the night before?
At a church.
So grandmother or mother would not allow him back in the home at that point?
That's correct.
Were you able to find the adoptive father or grandfather at the time?
Not until a few days later after we had removed or taken custody of Luke.
Okay. And what is his name?
Kent Hillsome.
Did he state whether he'd be willing to take Luke back at that time?
He was not able to do so, no.
Okay. Did he kind of state the same that Luke had some aggressive behaviors?
Yes.
And that he was not willing to care for him at the time?
Yes.
So both parents at the time were not able to, or were refusing to take the child back into the home?
That's correct.
And do you believe that at the time it was best interest of the child to remove and to try to find placement for him?
Yes.
Were you able to speak with the biological parents?
I spoke with biological father. I was not able to get in contact with his biological mother.
Okay. Did he ever state as far as custody rights or anything of the child?
He spoke about Miss Hillsome or Toni having custody of Luke, and that had been from court in another state.
Okay. At any time during your investigation, did Miss Hillsome provide you any documentation of her custody rights?
She did, yes.
Okay. Did you receive the exhibits I sent?
Yes, I did.
Could you look at exhibit number 3?
Yes, let me pull that up.
Is this the document you received?
Yes.
And can you tell me what that document is?
It's a final decree of adoption out of North Dakota.
And in the final paragraph on the second page,
Okay.
what does that final paragraph state?
That Luke is named the minor adoptive child of Toni Hillsome and Kent Hillsome.
Okay. So this is the decree giving them the custody rights and being the adoptive parents of Luke.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 3. It's the document that was just testified to. It is a court document signed by a district judge out of North Dakota, stating that they are the adoptive parents of this child.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 3 will be admitted.
Thank you, Honor. Ms. Valenzuela, after the removal of the case, were the parents cooperative with you?
Mr. Helsum was, Miss Helsum, not so much.
But at the time, due to the situation, the department did feel that it was in the child's best interest to remove and to place into foster care due to both parents refusing to take the child back in the home.
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, any questions?
No question, Your Honor.
Ms. Sapien?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Zavala?
No questions.
All right. Mr. Trout, anything further of this witness?
Nothing further of this witness, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, any objection to Ms. Valenzuela going on about her day?
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Valenzuela. You're free to leave us at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lex. I would call Brian Armendez. And how are you familiar with that case?
I was the supervisor on call on July 8th when we received the call from law enforcement about requesting immediate assistance to Ms. Tony Helsum's home.
And during the investigation, did you speak to Tony Helsum?
Yes.
And what did she make any statements to you about the situation going on?
Yes, Ms. Helsum wasn't very cooperative with Alexis initially, so I asked Alexis if I can call and speak to her. Ms. Helsum did let me know that she did not want Luke in her home. She was not providing any information as far as like the parents' names, birth certificates, just not at the time wasn't very cooperative. I'm trying to provide it or given us information that would have been vital to request placement for Luke.
And you stated she did tell you that she would not allow the child back into the home.
That's correct.
So she was giving you the same information she was giving Alexis. She was refusing to cooperate and take the child.
That's correct.
Did you ever get a chance to speak to Mr. Helsum?
Not Mr. Helsum. I believe Alexis did.
Okay, so you only spoke to Tony?
Yes.
Okay. Did she tell you anything about Luke's behavior and what had been going on?
Yes, that he has aggressive behavior, that when they had just gotten into an argument, she would go outside to cool down and that Luke would go behind her and flick her ear. She said that she didn't feel safe, that Luke breaks things inside of her home and he gets upset.
And you also believe after having a conversation with her, with Ms. Helsum, you believe it was in the best interest of the child to remove?
Yes.
Due to her refusing to take responsibility?
Correct.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, any questions?
No question, Your Honor.
Ms. Sapien?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Zavala?
No questions.
All right, then. Mr. Trout, anything further of this witness?
Nothing further of this witness, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, is he free to go at this time?
And
No
Objection.
No objection.
All right, Mr. Armendariz, you're free to go, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, department, got a further witness?
Yes, ma'am. Jalissa Bird, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Bird.
And how are you familiar with that case?
I'm the permanency specialist on this case.
When you are assigned a case, what are your first steps?
To get in contact with all parties on the case. So contacting Tony Helsum and Luke Helsum.
Were you able to do that?
Tony Helsum, I left several voicemails, phone calls, and then I was no longer able to call her cell phone. I believe I was possibly blocked. Mr. Kent Helsum, I was able to stay in contact and get in contact with Luke.
Do you, at the beginning of cases, develop service plans?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell us what service plans are?
There's services requested by the department for parents to work and basically provide more knowledge and help to basically place child back in the home.
So they are kind of guidelines for helping with reunification?
Yes.
Were family plans developed in this case?
Yes, they were.
Was grandmother, did she ever meet with you, or excuse me, was mother, Tony Helsum, did she ever meet with you and go over service plans?
No, she did not.
Did she refuse to meet with you for that?
Yes.
Did you send her copies of it?
I attempted to, but she did not receive it or return it.
Were the service plans filed with the court?
Yes.
Were they made in order of the court?
Yes.
Do you have in front of you exhibit number 1?
Yes.
And can you tell me what that exhibit is?
This is the notification of the family plan service to be filed for Tony Helsum and Kent Helsum.
Okay. And is this a accurate depiction of the service plans that you created for Tony Helsum?
Yes, it is.
And were these filed with the court on August 25th of 2023?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 1, the family plans of service that were previously filed with the court and made an order of the court that we just testified to.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right. Petitioner's exhibit 1 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Bird, throughout the life of this case, did Ms. Helsum work any services?
No, she did not.
What was asked of her in this case as far as services?
Individual counseling, anger control training, rational behavior training, parenting classes, and I believe, trying to remember, I'm sorry, I didn't have it pulled up. And I believe those are the classes we asked for.
Did she ever do rational behavior?
No.
Did she attempt to?
No.
Did she ever do individual counseling?
No, she did not.
Did she ever complete an assessment with Texas Panhandle Centers?
No, she did not.
Did she ever take any parenting classes?
No, she did not.
On any of those services we just mentioned, did she ever attempt to set them up or to engage them?
No, she did not.
Did she refuse to sign the service plans?
Yes, she did.
Has she at any time reached out to you to try to get these services set up?
No, she has not.
Do you know where Ms. Helsum lives now?
I was told she lives somewhere in Kansas, but not exactly where she lives, but she just moved to Kansas.
In the middle of the case?
Yes.
Did you, have you attempted to reach her?
Yes, I have.
In what ways do you try to get in touch with her?
She has a cell phone number we last used that she doesn't respond to, either phone call or text, an email address that she hasn't responded to. And then I did get in touch with her previous address in Texas, but I was told she moved to Kansas with no address.
Have you run any accurate searches or anything like that to try to find a new address for her?
I believe there was one I ran at the beginning, but I did not recently.
Okay. How often do you try to get in touch with her monthly?
Yes, I tried at least 3 attempts a month.
Okay. Have emails to the email address you have they come back as undeliverable or just not responded to?
One of her emails did come back as undeliverable, and the other email, I just didn't get a response. I believe she did respond to CASA, but she has not responded to me.
Okay. When was the last time, has mother visited the child throughout this case?
No, she has not.
Has she reached out to you to try to set up visits?
No, she has not.
Did she ever since you've been on the case, has she ever done just an initial visit?
No, she has not.
Was part of that due to her and Luke not wanting any visits with her?
Luke didn't want a visit with her, but she did not have any contact with me throughout the case.
Did she ever call just to inquire about how the child was doing?
No, she did not.
So throughout the life of this case, mother has not attempted to meet with, visit with, or check up on the child to see how he's doing?
That's correct.
Is the department today asking the court to terminate the parental rights of Tony Helsum as based upon failure to work services and constructive abandonment?
Yes.
Did the department provide, I know we did talk about service plans, but did the department provide resources for the mother to be reunified with Luke?
Yes.
And did mother avail herself of those?
No.
Do you know at this time whether mother has the ability to provide safe environment or shelter or necessities for the child?
I don't believe so at this time.
And do you believe it's in the best interest of the child to terminate the mother's parental rights?
I do.
Did you ever have any contact with Kent Helsum throughout this case?
Yes, I did.
And was he cooperative with you?
Yes, he was.
Did you receive what I sent out, exhibit number 2?
Yes, I did.
And what is that exhibit?
It's the affidavit of the voluntary relinquishment of his parental rights.
And is this signed by Mr. Kent Helsum?
Yes, it is.
Did he have 2 witnesses to it?
Yes, he did.
Was it signed and notarized?
Yes, it was.
Did the department consent to being the designated managing conservator of the child?
Yes, we did.
And was this filed with the court on April 26th of 2024?
Yes, it was.
Are you asking the court today to terminate the parental rights based upon the dad's voluntary relinquishment?
Yes, we are.
In those grounds only?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 2, which is the affidavit of voluntary relinquishment, which was just testified to.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 2 will be admitted.
And Ms. Bird, do you believe it's in the child's best interest to terminate Kent Helsum's rights based upon this voluntary relinquishment?
Yes, I do.
How is the child doing now?
He's doing well in placement. He's has had some issues with classes. He's working on getting his grades back up. He did have a few classes that he wasn't doing too well, but he did state he was going to work on those grades and getting them back up and getting back focused on school.
And where is he? Is he in a foster home or where is he?
He's in a group home in Houston.
Okay. But he is doing well. Have we had any issues? I know the beginning of the case started with some anger issues. Do we still have some anger issues with him?
No, nothing that's been reported. Placement actually called him a big giant teddy bear. So he's done well in his placement.
And so what we're discussing here today, you do believe, or the department does believe, that terminating the parental rights of Tony Helsum and Ken Helsum as Helsum is in the child's best interest?
Yes, I do.
And he seems to be doing very well where he is right now.
Yes, he is.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So apparently it didn't work out for Luke to go to Oregon with his biological father. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, let me see if I understand. Tony Helsum told the caseworker, the investigative worker, that she didn't want Luke in her home. And since she's made that statement, her actions have been 100% consistent with that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You've had no contact with her.
Correct.
And your efforts to provide her with service plan were unsuccessful.
Correct.
You have nothing to indicate that she was ever made aware of what the department wanted her to do in that service plan, or what the court wanted her to do in the court order, making that service plan a court order, correct?
Correct.
And who was it? You said that someone told you, but you didn't say who, told you that she's in Kansas.
Yes.
Who told you that?
It was her, the trailer home that she was staying at the park, reached out to me stating that she left her trailer and she said she moved to Kansas. And they were basically trying to get more information of where she was at, which I could not provide. But they provided me with information she moved to Kansas.
So they didn't have a forwarding address?
No. And then Mr. Kent Helsum did confirm that she did move to Kansas, but he didn't have an address.
Okay, I'll pass the witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Sapien?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Zavala?
Ms. Bird, you described Luke as being kind of a big teddy bear. Is it correct that he's been that way since he's been in care?
That's correct. The information we were provided from Tony Helsum and Kent Helsum just hasn't been accurate as far as his placement and the information.
Yes, non-responsive, Your Honor.
Overruled.
So we're not seeing the types of behavior that were described prior to him coming into care.
That's correct.
Okay. So I know that we had a request for an ICPC home study in Oregon, and I believe that Oregon is now requesting some things that we had no reason to believe they would request, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so unfortunately, we're 10 months into this case, and we're gonna have to start that process over again for the ICPC request.
Correct.
I hate that, and I do understand that that is coming from the other state and not from here. But I do understand that maybe that's going to require a new submission from you to get that started again.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Is there any way to get that submission in as soon as possible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And throughout your time working with Luke, that has been his concern and his hope that he could go to his aunt in Oregon.
Yes, it has.
I pass the witness.
Okay. Mr. Sharp, anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Bird?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then, Mr. Sharp, any further witnesses, or does the department rest?
No further witness, department rest, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Taylor, anything to present today?
Nothing, Your Honor. Arrest.
Good. Ms. Sapien?
Nothing, Your Honor. Rest.
All right, and Ms. Zavala?
No witnesses, nothing to present, Your Honor.
All right, and Ms. Zavala, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. I do believe that the parental rights should be terminated for both parents at this time in accordance with the testimony. Luke is doing really, really well. I was heartbroken to hear we're going to have to start this process over again, but I know Ms. Bird will do what she needs to get that going as quickly as possible. But Luke is doing very well in placement.
All right, thank you. All right, then, at this time, I do find by clear and convincing evidence that it is in the best interest to terminate the parental rights between the child and his mother, Tony Helsum, under Texas Family Code 161.001, subsection B1, the N and the O grounds, and the best interest under 161.001, subsection B2. I likewise find by clear and convincing evidence it's in the best interest to terminate the parental rights between the child and his father, Kent Helsum, based on Mr. Helsum's voluntary affidavit of relinquishment of parental rights under 161.001, subsection B1K, and the best interest under 161.001B2. At this time, I'll name the Department of Family and Protective Services as the permanent managing conservator of the child, and I'll dismiss all court-appointed attorneys from the case after the de novo and appellate timeframes expire, with the exception of Ms. Zavala, who will remain as the child's attorney and guardian ad litem. And then I would request Ms. Ostashi, and I'm so apologetic because I failed to ask for Costa's recommendation. I will stop right here and permit you to give your recommendation to the court. My apologies.
I really don't have much else to add. As Jalissa said, I was able to speak to Ms. Helsum in December, and all she said is that she was scared of Luke and didn't want him in her home. I went to go see Luke in person the beginning of this month, and he is doing really good. And he is a giant teddy bear. So my recommendation is just that he stays where he is until the ICPC can be taken care of.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Stashi. I'm so sorry. All right, so Ms. Stashi, does Casa wish to remain in Luke's case?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and so Casa will also remain in the case. And our first hearing for those still involved will be July 25th.
That is Martha Davis, the
2024,
grandma,
and that will
who's
be
trying to
on
get in. And she says that my client is not going to show up for court today. And so she said she can log in and tell you if you would like. But I told her she must, unless someone was calling her as a witness, she probably could not just hang out at this hearing.
Right, she can watch on YouTube.
Right.
So
But if you want to let her in and report what my client
if she logs back in, I will, except I don't have her right now. So all right, we are here today in each case on our final. This case had already gone into extension. We have a dismissal date of May 3rd of 2024. So we are going to proceed today. We are conducting this trial through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are also live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record.
Mr. Hill just fell out. He froze and he fell out.
Okay, I'll watch for him to get back in. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Present, ready, Your Honor.
Natalie Archer for the mother, Tashiana Klein, and I am present and ready to proceed on her behalf.
Jay Michelson on behalf of the father, Darnell Donald. His whereabouts are unknown, but I'm present and ready.
Brooks Barfield, present for J. Rowe Tyler. He's present, ready to proceed.
Jerry Morales for respondent, Father Cameron Douglas Coleman, Your Honor. He is at the Randall County Jail, and he is on this hearing. We are ready.
Jeff Hill on behalf of Daryl Anthony, the alleged father of Kingston. Judge, he's not present. I don't expect him to be present. He's previously indicated to me he doesn't want anything to do with this case, so I don't expect that he'll be present.
Stacey Zavala on behalf of the children.
Leslie Williams with Amarillo Area Casa. Sorry, Judge.
I was trying to find you on my screen. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Then, Mr. Trout, who's your first witness today?
Becky Amos, Your Honor. How are you familiar with those cases?
On September 28th, 2022, I received a report. The allegations were neglectful supervision of Kingston by his mother, Tashiana. She gave birth to Kingston, and she and Kingston both tested positive for methamphetamines. I'm sorry, marijuana.
Okay. And once you got that report, what is your first steps? What do you do?
We go interview the mother and see the kiddo.
Okay. And were you able to do that in this case?
Yes.
Excuse me. And were you able to meet with her at the hospital?
Yes.
Did you discuss with Ms. Klein the reason for you being there?
Yes.
And did she, during your conversation, did she admit or deny any drug use to you?
She admitted she smoked marijuana.
Okay. Was meconium collected from the baby?
Yes.
But that had not come back at the time you had your first conversation with her. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that was when was the date when you were first met with her?
I met with her on September 28th.
Okay. At that time, did the department attempt to prevent a removal?
Yes.
And in what way did y'all go through trying to prevent that?
She provided me her aunt and her cousin's name and information so she could go stay with them and be supervised, you know, while we worked on the investigation.
Okay. And who was that aunt and cousin?
Miss Davis and Miss Smith.
Okay. And so y'all did go into reach a safety plan at that time, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you able to find out who the fathers or potential fathers were of the children?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you believe was the father at the time of Pharaoh and Kingston?
Jairo Tyler.
Okay. And were you able to speak to him?
I did.
And at the time, where was he living?
He was in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Did he state whether he and mom were still together or were they split up at the time?
He said they weren't together.
Did he know, about mother's smoking marijuana that she had admitted to?
Yes.
And what did he state as far as that?
That she told him that she was not going to smoke marijuana anymore.
Were you able to find out who we thought were the father of Kamaya and Tanaya?
Yes.
And who was that?
Cameron Coleman.
Okay. And where was Mr. Coleman at the time?
He was in a mulch unit in Toya, Texas.
Okay. Is that a TDCJ unit?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to make contact with him at that time?
Yes, I did talk to him.
Okay. Did you also mail out some letters to him?
Yes.
What happened next after that?
After I mailed out the letters to him, Tashiana and the baby got released from the hospital, and they went and stayed with the aunt and cousin.
Okay. Did Kingston's meconium results come back?
Yes.
And were
They
those
were
concerning?
positive.
Sorry.
They were positive.
Okay. Positive for what?
Marijuana and amphetamines.
Okay. Did you discuss this with Ms. Klein?
Yes.
And did she at that time admit or deny any methamphetamine use?
She denied it.
Okay. Did you ask her if she was willing to drug screen?
Yes.
And did she?
Yes.
Okay. Did she go that day or did y'all take her another day?
I believe we took her the next day.
Did was that on, did y'all do hair, UAs? How did y'all do those drugs?
It was a hair strand.
Did the results come back on mom's?
Yes.
And was she have concerns in there?
Yes.
Okay. Was she positive for amphetamines or methamphetamines?
Yes.
Was she positive for cocaine?
Yes.
Did you go speak to Ms. Klein about the positive drug screens?
Yes.
And what did she admit or deny at that time?
She denied using methamphetamines or cocaine.
Okay. Did she admit to any drug use during that conversation?
No. She did. She said she went out with a friend and took an ecstasy pill.
And this was after being released from the hospital?
Yes.
So just for the timeline, mom and baby were released and went to aunt's house and cousin's house. Okay. And then mom went out with a friend and took ecstasy.
Yes.
Okay. Did she state where she thought the high levels of cocaine may have come from?
From the ecstasy.
Okay. And that was her only reasoning or excuse for that possibly being there?
Yes.
After that conversation, what did you do next?
We talked about her working with our family-based safety services,
Okay.
and we set up a family team meeting. And the aunt just said she couldn't do it anymore, that she wanted her and the kiddos to find somewhere else to stay.
Okay. It was that due to them not wanting to have any issues due
Yes.
to mom's drug use? Okay.
Yes.
Were they aware at the time of mom's drug use?
No.
Okay. So at that point, due to not having a safety supervisors anymore, was it determined to remove the children due to that?
Yes.
And mom being supervising party with high drug levels?
Yes.
Were you able to speak with either of the fathers about this at the time?
Yes. Of course, Mr. Coleman was in jail.
Mhm.
And Tashiana said that she didn't think that Gyro could handle the kiddos.
Where was Mr. Tyler living at the time?
In Dallas.
Okay. Was he living in an apartment or did he tell you what type of?
He was living in a hotel.
Okay. And at that time, it wasn't a suitable place for the children?
Correct.
Okay. Where were the children placed at that time, once they were removed?
Only 2 of them were placed in a foster home in Pampa, and
Okay.
2 were placed down by Dallas.
Were the children ever drug screened?
Yes.
And did we ever get screens back on them?
Yes,
Did we have positive drug screens on all 4 children?
yes.
Your Honor, I would ask to admit exhibit number 1 on all 4 cases. It's exhibit KT1, exhibit F1, exhibit K1, and exhibit T1. Those exhibits are the affidavit of business records that were filed into this case back in October of last year. They are the drug screens for each individual child. And I'll tell you which case they go into.
All right, then petitioner's exhibits KT1, F1, P1, and K1 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Amos, you said that the children were positive. According to those results in those drug screens, what were they positive for?
Methamphetamines and cocaine and marijuana.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And you do believe that due to no appropriate supervising party, due to aunt and them wanting mom and children out of the home, we removed, and that was in the best interest of the children?
Yes.
And do the results after the children were removed of the drug screens, does that further confirm that it was in the best interest of the children?
Yes.
Were you able to have any other conversations with either dad after this?
Yes. We sent a courtesy worker to Dallas to meet with Mr. Tyler.
Okay.
And I don't think I spoke to Mr. Coleman after that.
Okay. Did Mr. Coleman get transferred up to Randall County during your?
Yes, he did. And I'm sorry, I did go interview him there.
Okay. And did you have a conversation with him about the removal?
Yes.
Okay. And what did he state to you as far as paternity of the 2 girls?
He said he did in 2019, he did a home DNA test and on the girls. And it showed that Tiana is his child, but Kamara was not.
Okay. So according to him, he was a positive match on a DNA test to one of the children, but not to the other.
Yes.
Okay. And due to Mr. Tyler's living situation of being in a hotel at the time, he could not be considered for placement of the child at that time.
Correct.
And Mr. Coleman being in jail could not take the children.
Right.
Did you have any other names at the time of possible fathers?
No.
And so you do believe it was in the best interest of the children?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Archer.
Did you consider Martha Davis at the time as far as placement?
I think we looked into it and she had some significant history with the department.
Was it pretty old history?
Yes.
Or recent? Was that the only mark against her?
That I can recall.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, would it be a fair statement to say J. Rowe Tyler did nothing to result in the removal initially in this case?
Yes.
Right, no further questions.
All right, Mr. Morales.
Thank you. Ms. Amos, as an investigator, once we decide to remove children, or the department decides to remove children, as the investigator, is it your job to try to find family placement as well, or as soon as possible?
Yes.
And that goes for not just maternal family, but paternal family as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I know that can probably be a little bit difficult if there's multiple fathers involved, but in this particular situation, did you ever ask Douglas Coleman about any family members that he might have available to take the children?
I believe I gave him a caregiver resource form to fill out. And I do not remember who he put on that.
Okay. when one of these resource forms is filled out, who typically reviews that for placement options?
It's usually the CVS worker.
Okay, so once that form is filled out, you're kind of out of it. You don't necessarily look at the placement.
I can, yes.
Okay, and in this particular case, do you recall looking into any of the placement options that he might have recommended?
I do not.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Mickelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Amos, during the initial period of your investigation, were you able to identify one of the fathers as Darnell Donald?
No.
Okay, that occurred after your investigation?
Yes.
Okay, pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Eldridge.
Hey, Your Honor, I don't have any questions.
All right, Mr. Hill.
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Zavala.
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Trapp. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, Your Honor. Couple of questions real quick. Ms. Amos, following along with what Mr. Morales asked you a second ago, you do review potential kinship placements if those names come back to you while you're still involved. Is that correct?
Correct.
And from time to time, if you turn over some paperwork and it doesn't come back to the department until after your involvement, St. Francis or the next worker will review that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. To your memory on this, it appears from your report that you gave Mr. Douglas Coleman, the paperwork while he was in jail. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you remember getting that paperwork back before you were off the case?
I don't.
Okay. And earlier you had testified that one of the reasons for the removal was also mom's positive drug screens, correct?
Correct.
Judge, I would ask to admit exhibits KT2, F2, K2, and T2. They are affidavit of business records that were filed back in October and served on all the parties of the drug screens for mom.
All right, then those 4 exhibits will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness. No further questions.
Okay. Anybody have any more questions for Ms. Amos?
Just a follow-up question, Your Honor.
All right, certainly.
Ms. Amos, I believe Mr. Trout asked you if you recall getting the kinship placement form returned, and you said you do not. You don't remember it, and so I guess my question is, you don't remember getting it returned, or are you certain that it was returned or not returned at all to you before your investigation was over?
It wasn't returned to me that I remember.
Okay, that's what I was unclear on. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Ms. Amos?
No further questions.
All right, Mr. Trout, you can call your next witness.
So Rachel Peoples, Your Honor. Are you familiar with the case involving the children we're speaking of today?
Yes,
And how are you familiar with those cases?
I'm the caseworker.
Have you been in contact with the parents throughout this case?
Yes, I have been since I was assigned.
Okay. And you haven't been on this case that long, have you?
No, just about 2 months.
Okay. In your time on the case, though, does St. Francis keep records in the regular course of business?
Yes.
In the files in y'all's office?
Yes.
Have you had time to review those files?
Yes.
And are you a custodian of records for those?
Yes.
Okay. So how many different workers have been on this case?
I think I know that there's been 2 for sure.
Before you?
Yes.
Okay. And you have reviewed y'all's file notes and stuff?
Yes.
Just what went on during the case before you got it? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So what does St. Francis do when y'all first get a case? What's your first job?
We meet with the parents and we set up their family plan of service and set up the services and then go over it with them, have them sign it, and then file it with the court.
Okay. And what are family plans of service?
It's just it's a plan with services on it that include like counseling and OSAR, parenting classes, things like of that nature.
Okay. And are these services that are kind of a roadmap or guidelines to help with possible reunification?
Yes.
And there's services that are based kind of case by case depending on what each parent is needing.
Yes.
Was that done in this case?
Yes,
And were those service plans made in order of the court?
they were.
Judge, I would ask to admit, and these numbers are going to be a little different. Exhibit K6, Exhibit KT6, Exhibit F7, and Exhibit T11. Those are certified copies of the status hearing order that were filed into this case and signed by the court, ordering this family plans of service as an order of the court. Ms. Peoples, did you, since you've been on the case, have you done another family plan of service? That some things been altered since the originals?
I have not.
Okay. Did you go over any family plans of service with the parents? Any of them?
No, I wasn't able to.
Okay. Have you mailed any of them out?
No.
Have you had a discussion with Ms. Klein as far as her services?
Yes.
Okay. Is she aware that the services were ordered?
Yes,
Okay. Did you receive the exhibits I sent out?
I did.
Can you look at exhibit KT3, for example? And can you tell me what KT3 is?
It is the family plan for Taishiana.
And you were never able to get with her and go over these?
I was not.
But you and your supervisor did sign them?
Yes.
Okay, and they were filed with the court?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit KT3. It's a certified copy of the family plan service that we just discussed. And Your Honor, also exhibit KT4 is a certified copy of the family plan service for Daryl Anthony that was filed with the court. I apologize. It's going to take a second. I'm going to go individually on these. I would also admit exhibit F4 and F5. They are family plans of service that were certified copies of the family plans of service that were filed with the court also. Your Honor. People, throughout this case, have parents been working services? The parents you've been able to get in touch with?
No. Cameron has not been able to. To my knowledge, Daryl has not. Taishiana has not finished. And Jerome did work his services.
Okay. So out of all the parents at this time, Jerome Tyler is the only one who has completed his services?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll start with mom right now. What services was mom required to work?
She was required to do an OSAR and a psychosocial and parenting classes. Also to drug screen.
So
and counseling.
Is that individual counseling?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start at the top. The OSAR. Did mom do an OSAR?
She did an OSAR on 11/8/2022. But as of April 9th, she did not complete a new one.
And was she asked to do a new one?
Yes.
Due to what?
Still testing positive.
Okay. So throughout this case, has mom been testing positive for drugs?
Yes.
Okay. Has mom missed a lot of drug screens also?
She has, yes.
Okay. And in the course of the case, when she did make drug screens, did she ever test negative?
She did test negative on 9/29/23.
Okay.
She had a UA that was negative then.
Okay. And has mom gone since then?
Since then, she did not go besides when I was able to oral swab her on the 17th of this month.
Okay, so just this month?
Yes.
Okay. But before that negative, was any of mom's drug screens negative or were they always positive?
They were all positive.
And so mom was asked to do a new OSAR and never completed that.
Correct.
Did mom ever do the psychosocial?
She did on March 7th of 23.
Okay. Were there any recommendations that came out of that?
Yes.
And did mom complete those recommendations?
She did not. She did not finish counseling.
Okay. And counseling was made one of those recommendations?
Yes.
Did she start counseling?
She was, I believe she started, but she was discharged last April due to missing multiple appointments and showing up 20 to 30 minutes late.
Okay. Did she ever re-engage in those since in the last year?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Did she ever do her parenting classes?
Yes, she it says she completed them on May 3rd of 23.
Okay. Did mom start recovery?
That is counseling.
Okay, so that's the counseling that she never finished.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that the department asked mom to do that she did not complete?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you know where this client lives right now?
The last address she gave me was on, and that's where I was able to oral swab her at.
Okay. Do you know whose house that was?
She said it was a friend.
Okay. Do you know how long she'd been staying there?
No, the month prior, I was able to see her on the address on Florida Street.
Okay. And what address whose address was Florida Street?
That was her, I think she called it a relative or a friend there too.
Okay. You don't remember name?
No, I'm sorry.
Do you know why she wasn't living there anymore?
Well, I called in an intake on that home because she had admitted to drug use 30 days before that. So I don't know if it was made in order that she needed to leave that home because of children being there or what, but she did tell me that she was getting an apartment at that point. So
did you meet any of the other people that lived in that home? You said you called in a report, but did you?
I did not know.
Okay. Let's see. And our main issue throughout this case with mom has been her drug use. Is that correct?
Yes.
And from the documentation we have and from what you have seen and by mom's admittance, has mom stopped using drugs at this time?
No.
When was mom's last visits with the children?
February 20th.
Of this year?
Yes.
Okay. Before that, was mom having regular visits?
She was.
And you said their last visit was in February. Why has that stopped?
The documentation stated that mom was, she was using some belligerent words and she showed up 15, I believe it was 15 minutes late to that visit. And this was a reoccurrence of showing up late to the visits. And after then, the visits were stopped.
Did mom cause a scene at that visit?
Yes.
Was that in a visitation house or where was that?
Yes, it was in the visitation house. There's lots of visits going on during that time.
Okay, so there were other families in the building at that time?
Yes.
Was this in front of other families or was this in a private room during the visit that this happened?
I believe it was in front of other families.
Did the visitation note state whether the children were upset about this?
Yes.
And so was it explained to mom why visits were stopped at that point?
Yes, I believe it was.
Do you believe at this point that it is in the best interest of the children to terminate the parental rights of Tashiana Klein as to all 4 children based upon no change in habit and continued drug use throughout the case?
Yes.
For mom not completing services?
Yes.
And in fact, Mom's not here today. Was she made aware of the hearing?
She was.
Did you have any communication with her about this hearing today?
Yes, I was texting her before the hearing.
So she had the link and was aware.
Yes, she was aware.
And do you believe that terminating of the mother's rights as to all 4 children would be in the best interest of those children?
Yes.
And also due to not only mom's drug use, but in the beginning of the case, the children having hard drugs in their system.
Yes.
And that endangered the children's physical health and safety.
Yes.
Now we'll move on to the fathers in the case right now. You heard testimony, or you were here for Ms. Amos's testimony earlier, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time that Ms. Amos was on the case, she only had the names of J-Ro Tyler and Cameron Coleman, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there were paternity testing done in these cases, weren't there?
Yes.
Okay. And during that, Mr. Tyler was found to be Pharaoh's father, but he was found not to be Kingston's, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And actually, this kind of misstated. Paternity testing was only done on Kingston, the new baby, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so he was found not to be the father. So these cases were separate.
Yes.
Okay. Do you see exhibit number 5, KT5?
Yes.
And can you tell me what that is?
Certificate of Paternity Registry Search.
And does it state that anybody has intended to claim paternity of Kingston?
No.
Okay. Who is the name of an alleged dad that we got from, I'm assuming it came from mom as to the child Kingston?
Daryl Anthony.
Okay. Have you ever had any contact with Daryl Anthony?
I have.
Okay. Did we try to do paternity testing on him?
Early on in the case, we did.
Have we been able to complete that?
No.
When was your last conversation with Mr. Anthony?
It was probably 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Do you know where he is?
He's in the Dallas area is what he stated.
Okay. Will he give you an address or tell you where he is?
He did not provide me an address.
Okay. Has he ever stated whether he was willing to work in this case to try to get custody of Kingston?
No.
Did he make a statement as far as if he would do paternity testing to you?
He mentioned to me still an interest in wanting to, and I directed him to his attorney.
Okay. And when was that?
That was the conversation we had about 2 weeks ago.
Did he state he would only do paternity if he was to get his child?
Yes, he didn't really want to do it if he wasn't going to be able to get Kingston.
But he wasn't willing to just do it to see if he is Kingston's father?
No.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit Exhibit KT5, which is the certified copy of the Certificate of Paternity Registry Search showing that nobody has intended to claim paternity of Kingston. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Peoples, as to Kingston, do you believe it's in the best interest of the child to terminate any alleged father's paternity rights due to failure to register with the paternity registry search?
Yes.
And you believe that's in the best interest of that child?
I do.
Has there been any other names given as a possible father to Kingston outside of Mr. Anthony?
No.
Have you had any conversations with Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Okay. And where is he currently?
In Randall County Jail.
Has Mr. Coleman stated, does he know when he's going to get out of jail?
He told me that he thought he was going to be getting out next year, but from the exhibit, it looks like he'll be in there for 4 years.
Your Honor, I would ask to admit, so let me get them on. Exhibit T5, T6, T7, and T8. Those are certified copies of indictments and judgments against Mr. Cameron Coleman. Ms. Peoples, do you have those exhibits in front of you?
Yes.
On T5, can you read at the top what the offense is?
Assault of a family / household member. Previous conviction.
Yes, ma'am. And then on T6, exhibit T6, what is that one?
That is the judgment of conviction by court, waiver of jury trial.
And that's the conviction to go along with the assault household family member with previous.
Yes.
And about halfway down, does it state what his sentence was?
Yes.
What is that?
4 years of institutional division, TDCJ.
And kind of at the top on the right side, it says date sentence imposed. What is that? When is that?
10/4 of 2023.
Okay, so about 6 months ago.
Yes.
On T7, can you tell me what that offense was?
Aggravated assault with deadly weapon.
And T8, what is this exhibit?
The judgment of conviction.
And when was the sentence imposed?
10/4 of 23.
And what was his sentence?
4 years of institutional division, TDCJ.
Okay. And at the very bottom left side, it says total time jail credit. What is that? How many days does that say?
876.
Okay. So he has over a couple years credit. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now he's not in TDCJ right now. He's in Randall County. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell me what exhibit T9 is?
T9 is the certified copy of the indictment.
And can you tell me what that indictment is for?
It is for the unlicensed possession of firearm.
Anything else after that?
Unlicensed possession of firearm by felony. Sorry.
And that's just an indictment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. He has not been convicted of this, to your
Correct.
knowledge. Okay. Have you discussed, do you know if he's set to go to trial or if what is going on with this case? Has he talked to you about that?
I do not know.
Okay. Have you ever done searches for jail record searches?
I have not.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask to admit exhibit T9, which is the certified copy of the indictment that was just testified to. Do you know what Mr. Coleman's sitting in jail for right now? I understand he's got some charges that's been convicted, but do you know, is there anything else he's in jail for right now?
Not that I know of.
He has not discussed any of it with you?
No.
To your knowledge, he's just sitting in jail on the convictions that we talked about a second ago?
Yes.
And the new charge?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask to admit exhibit T9, T10. It is a printout of the government website from Randall County showing the jail records for Mr. Cameron Douglas Coleman and what he's in for. Ms. Peoples, do you have that one in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what the three things on there are?
3 things I see are BS / unlicensed possession of firearm by felony, federal hold, and federal detainer.
Have you had any discussions with Mr. Coleman about the federal stuff? You don't know what's going on there?
I have not.
Okay, fine. Thank you, ma'am. Has Mr. Coleman, he's been in jail the whole time, is that correct?
Yes.
We've been in this case for about 1.5 years. And he's been incarcerated the whole time.
Yes.
Has he worked any services that he was able to?
No.
Has he asked you if there are any services that y'all can try to get set up while he's in custody?
No, I did ask him if he ever completed a parenting packet, and he said that he didn't. He never got them.
He never got them or he never completed them?
Oh, he didn't complete them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you stated he's possibly get out when?
In 4 years.
Well, back at the what did he state he would be out of jail?
He told me it would be next year.
Do you believe at this time that it would be, well, yes, in the best interest of the child to terminate, Mr. Coleman's paternity rights as to Tashiana, or excuse me, Tamaya, based upon failure to work services and, possible incarceration for longer than 2 years from the date of filing?
Yes.
And you believe that's in the child's best interest?
Yes, I do.
Now, as to Kamaya, do you have you received any other, possible father's names to Kamaya?
Okay, Mr. Trout, hang on a
Yes,
second.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Since we're shifting gears a tiny bit.
Okay.
It's almost 3 o'clock. I'm gonna give everybody just a real short break.
Okay.
So 5-minute, 10-minute break at most.
Okay, so on the website, right, if they look my name up on the Rutherford County website and it says BS, it has my charge, that means sponsoring, right? Okay, so if it says I'm here on the.
Hey, guys at the jail, you might.
If it says I'm here on a federal hold, federal detainer, that means I'm in federal custody, right? You know,
Okay, all right, Mr. Trout, you can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Peoples, we were moving over to Kamaya's case. Can you tell me what exhibit number 5 is, K5? While you're looking for that, I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
During the case, has mom giving any names of other alleged or potential fathers of Kamaya?
No.
Who do we have named as alleged fathers during the case?
Darnell Donald.
Okay. And there's also an unknown father named in this case, correct?
An unknown?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Have you had any contact with Darnell Donald?
I have.
When was your last contact with him?
It was probably, I think it was last week. I have him as a father on another case of mine.
Okay.
And I have not been able to meet with him, in my other case.
Okay.
For multiple times. I've tried attempting with him, but, and I've asked him to meet with me, but he hasn't.
Okay. Has he made any statements as to his paternity of Kamaya?
He did in the text messages. He said that Kamaya wasn't his, but then he called me and said, "Oh, I thought you were talking about this other baby."
Okay.
But then he acknowledged, he said, "Yes, well, Kamaya's mine."
But he has still not completed a paternity test for us either, has he?
No.
Okay. Has he stated whether he's just didn't make his appointments? Is he going to? They just ignored it?
No interest in any of that solidifying that.
Okay. Has he told you where he is?
No.
Will he give you an address?
No.
Will he tell you what town he's in?
I assume he's here. I'm pretty sure he's here.
But you have nothing to verify that he's actually in Amarillo?
No.
Okay. Did you find exhibit K5?
I did, yes.
Okay. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes. It is the certificate of paternity registry search.
And is that for Kamaya?
Yes.
And does it state, is there been anybody make an intent to claim paternity of her?
No.
As to unknown father and Darnell Donald, the alleged father, is the department asking to terminate any paternity rights that they may have based upon the failure to register with the paternity registry search?
Yes.
And you believe that's in the best interest?
Yes.
And has Darnell Donald, has he attempted to work any type of services or reach out about that?
No.
Have you tried to get him to go drug screen, for instance?
Yes, I've requested him to drug screen and he has not gone.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit K5, which is a certified copy of the certificate of paternity registry search indicating no intent to claim paternity to Kamaya. And just to, Ms. People, just to, because I know we've gone through a lot of information on the 3 cases we've talked about, department is requesting permanent managing conservatorship as to Kingston, as to Tamaya, and as to Kamaya, based upon mothers, terminating parental rights and mothers' rights based upon failure to work services endangering the children by them being positive for drugs at the beginning of the case. Is that correct?
Yes.
And for the alleged fathers, in Kingston's case and Kamaya's case, based upon failure to register with paternity registry search.
Yes.
And as to Mr. Douglas Coleman's rights, as to Tamaya, based upon failure to work services and possible incarceration of 2 years from the date of the filing.
Yes.
Do you believe at this time Mr. Douglas Coleman can provide a home for Tamaya?
No,
And you do believe that's in the best interest of all of those children?
I do.
Okay. And as to Pharaoh, terminating the parental rights of mother based upon the same reasons we just spoke about.
Yes.
Now, have you had much contact with the dad in Pharaoh's case, Mr. Jared Tyler?
I have, yes.
Okay. Does he stay in pretty consistent contact with you?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Now we talked about service plans earlier with him. He's worked his services?
Yes, he has.
Okay. Does the St. Francis Department still have concerns with Mr. Tyler?
Yes.
Okay. And what are those concerns?
His drug screens are still positive for marijuana. Yeah.
And does he live in Texas?
No, he lives in Oklahoma.
Okay. And is there still I know we've been trying to get it done for a while, but is there still a pending ICPC on him?
Yes.
And he lives with who in Oklahoma?
He lives with his aunt.
Okay. Do you know at this time where the ICPC stands?
It is still in the hands of the people who conducted the ICPC. They're waiting for some information to come from the Dallas Police Department, I believe.
Okay. And you don't know what that information is right now?
No, I don't.
Okay. Now, you said that he's still testing positive for marijuana.
Correct.
And to your knowledge, is marijuana legal in Oklahoma?
It is. And Daniel, can I go back on, sorry, we're just waiting on the supervisor to sign off on the ICPC.
Okay, so you've made it to that point now.
Yes.
Okay. And that's recent occurrence.
Yes.
Okay. Now you said positive for marijuana. It's legal in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Does he have a card?
He does.
Okay. Is he holding a job?
Yes, he is. He just provided me with pay stubs this last week or this week.
Okay. Judge, I would ask to admit Exhibit F3. It's the business records affidavit on the drug screens for Mr. Tyler throughout this case. They were properly filed in October of last year and served to parties in the case.
I object to the extent of any type of test as not being testified to a chemist in this particular case. Therefore, that's my objection to any type of drug resulting. And that's to my client.
I didn't hear all of that, Mr. Barfield. What?
I'll make it easier. Same thing I always object. There's been no.
You're cutting out. You're cutting out a lot. That's why we're struggling.
Okay, it was work. Okay, let me talk really slow. Does that help?
Sure.
I will object to an affidavit of a drug test result as to the results of the drug test not being proved in a court of law by a chemist. That is my objection to that exhibit.
All right, and so I will sustain the objection as to any interpretation of those results, which worker can testify as to what they say, just basically what it says in plain English, but she's not qualified to interpret.
Yes, ma'am. And so, Judge, I'm sorry, will they be admitted?
Yeah, I was waiting to see if I heard any other objections.
No objections.
All right, then. Petitioner's Exhibit F3 will be admitted for the purpose of what the document says. There will be no interpretation by Ms. Peoples of that document other than just what it says in plain English.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Peoples, is one of the reasons for the home study in Oklahoma, did Dad ever test positive for anything other than marijuana?
He did.
Okay. What did he test positive for?
He tested positive for methamphetamine.
Okay. And was that in August of 23?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever had a conversation with him about that?
I have.
Okay. Did he state anything about those positive tests to you?
He did. He said that he did not use methamphetamines, that he must have been around it, or I think maybe there was a mention of it being possibly in the marijuana, maybe. I know for sure it was being around it.
Okay. And is that one of our main concerns for wanting the home study in Oklahoma, was the drug screens?
Yes.
At this time, would the department ask for permanent management conservatorship of Pharaoh also, until we can just get the ICPC figured out?
Yes.
We're waiting on. And is that due to y'all not being able to agree to place the child back, even though dad's completed everything, but there's still concerns with the drug screen?
Yes.
Okay. And is that what you would ask the court to do today?
Yes.
Okay. So in Pharaoh's instance, it would be terminating mother's parental rights, and then PMC until we can get this situation figured out.
Yes.
And do you believe that that's in the best interest of the child?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness at this time, Ma'am.
Ms. Peoples, that home study that you said you're just awaiting the supervisors to sign off on it. I mean, do we have something specific from Oklahoma saying that the home study has passed, and now we just have to have a supervisor at St. Francis or somebody sign off?
Your Honor, I've been in contact with Oklahoma, and they could not.
Hey, whoa. Ms. Sessions, we're in a trial. You haven't been sworn in.
Sorry.
As a witness. So let me ask, if Ms. Peoples doesn't know, we can take care of that and swear you in, but the question was for her.
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know the details of that right now.
Okay. All right, then we'll take that up. We can take it up with a different witness.
Yes, ma'am. And Your Honor, I will state, as of Friday, I had not heard that it had come back to that point yet. So it's a very new development, and it may have just come in today. I'm not sure. But last I had heard, we were not at that point yet. So that was news to me just then when she stated that it was back for a supervisor to look at.
Okay.
But
all right, well, we can possibly address it with a different witness then.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, then, Ms. Archer.
Okay, during the course of this case, my client's had several jobs, has she not?
The court report says that she has.
Okay.
She has, yes.
And are you aware that sometimes she'll also cut hair out of her house?
I am not aware of that.
So she has attempted to keep a job as stated on her service plan, correct?
I guess not. I mean, not to my knowledge, she hasn't been keeping a job.
Would you say it's true she's had several jobs?
Yes, I guess so, based on the court report. And
okay, and she's completed her OSAR, correct?
She did complete her OSAR.
And she went to Synacor all but 2 days. Is that true?
Yes, she did not complete the 30-day program.
And she left 2 days early, is that right?
It says that she left a week before completing.
And did she ever ask you about rehab options?
She did not ask me about rehab options.
Do you know if she asked one of the prior caseworkers?
It does say on here that she did. On the court report.
And also on the court report, it mentions that she requested a class that's done in person, not over Zoom. What class was that?
Was it her outpatient?
On page 12, after the daily recovery service, it says she requested a class done in person. I just didn't know what class that was. I didn't know if you knew.
Oh, it was outpatient. She was asking, I believe.
Okay, so she did show some interest in trying to get help for a drug problem. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And did she complete her psychosocial?
She did.
And she completed parenting, correct?
Yes.
And she did a behavioral health program?
Where does it specify which behavioral health?
That's why I was wondering if she submitted you documentation of completing one.
I never received any documentation. I wasn't aware of any behavioral health program.
And are you, let's see, she's had Shay Cairns as a caseworker, is that right?
Yes, that's what I read on there.
And then Samara Duran?
Yes.
And then Jennifer Mays,
Yes.
and then you?
Yes.
Okay, so she's had quite a bit of turnover in caseworkers during the course of this case, correct?
She has.
Okay. And so the main allegation isn't that she didn't make a good attempt to do her services, it's the drug test, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so how did her last mouth swab turn out? Was it negative or positive?
She was positive.
For what?
She was positive for amphetamine, marijuana, and methamphetamines.
And did she tell you on the missing screens why she didn't show up to do that drug screening?
No, she did not.
Okay. Does she have a driver's license?
No, she does not.
Okay. So,
Ms. Archer, I'm gonna have to interrupt you for a minute. Mr. Tyler, this is a trial. You're not under oath. You can't send testimony in a chat. I want everybody to disregard that if they've looked at it. I didn't read through the whole thing because I figured out real quickly that this was set with some form of testimony. So you need to just not put anything in there unless it's something like, I need to talk to my lawyer or something of that nature. Okay, you can proceed, Ms. Archer.
Okay.
Well, can I talk to my lawyer?
You can give me just a couple minutes because we're going to have to break anyway. And so I'll let you talk to him in just a couple minutes.
Judge, I know what he's going to talk to me about. I just read the chat, but we can break out again. I think I'll handle it. I'll talk to him when we break.
Okay. All right. We're going to have to break in just a couple minutes anyway. So Ms. Archer, go ahead with your questions and then we'll take a quick break.
Okay. I think I can get to the point pretty quickly. So does my client have a driver's license as far as you know, Ms. Peoples?
No.
Okay. And do you think that made it hard for her to get to the drug screens?
Yes, but we offer rides to drug screens.
Okay. Do you know if the prior caseworkers offered rides to her?
I'm not sure if she did, but I think I don't know if she did.
And did the girls, in this case, did they express a desire to visit mom, have visitation?
Yes, the girls, they brought up their mom.
Okay. And did my client ever miss a visitation?
I don't know. I know she was late, from the documentation that I read.
And could that possibly be her ride situation? Caused her to be late?
No, she was receiving, we had a transporter go pick her up. And it was reported that the transporter would wait outside her home about 30 minutes waiting for her to come out.
Okay. But she didn't miss one, or you said you didn't know if she missed any. Was that your testimony?
Yes, I'm not sure if she missed one.
Okay. And do the boys in the case want to see mom?
From when I have seen the boys, they have not asked about.
But the girls have.
It's just Pharaoh. He hasn't asked.
Okay. Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Okay. It's 3:31. Ms. Taylor needs a break. Mr. Barfield needs to talk to his client. So we'll break until we see Ms. Taylor return. Okay.
Judge.
Yes, sir.
Hi. How long are we going to continue today?
I'm hoping we're getting fairly close to being done, but I don't know that. But we're going to continue till we finish.
My question to you is, I'm in the 251st jury room in Randall County right now because I had a bunch of stuff this morning and couldn't get back to the office in time. I think you have finished, or not you, I think the state has finished with testimony regarding my client, Mr. Anthony. They're wanting me out of the jury room, and also there's another court matter that they want me to take care of before the day is over. May I be excused, or would you prefer that I stick around for the rest of the hearing?
That's purely your call, Mr. Hill. I mean, let me just check. Mr. Trout, you intend to put on any further testimony regarding Mr. Anthony?
I don't intend to, Your Honor. Far as I know, nothing should come up unless somebody asks a question that I need to answer. But if Mr. Hill's not there, I doubt anybody will ask that question.
All right, Mr. Hill, if something should come up, would you be available for us to try to reach out and contact you by your cell phone or something?
Absolutely, 100% be available by my cell phone.
Okay, so if anything does come up, we won't go any further with it till we reach out and make contact with you.
That'd be fine. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, then. Let's see. I'm trying to remember where we were now. I know Mr. Tyler asked to speak to his attorney, and they did talk at a breakout room, but Ms. Taylor, where were we when we broke?
And Judge, I thought Ms. Archer had just passed, but I'm not sure.
Yes, she had just passed her. And yep, then you said that I needed a break.
Okay. All right, Mr. Barfield's up.
Okay. All right. Ma'am, so I'm going to try to expedite this cross-examination. Can everybody hear?
Yeah, you're still breaking up, Brooks. I don't know.
Okay. So did, and you've already answered this, I believe, when you say J-Ro worked all his services, just for clarification of the record, he worked his services and completed his service plan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, after the August incident that was mentioned about and I'm going to refer to it as alleged results of methamphetamine for my legal purposes, was that the only incident that type of substance other than marijuana occurred in this case, to your knowledge?
Yes.
And even since then, he was drug tested. After August, did
Brooks, it's like you start to talk and then it just kind of slowly disappears.
okay, Judge, can you move to somebody else and let me try to find some headphones? Maybe I can plug it in and out.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Let's just, Ms. Morales, we'll let you cross-examine.
Thank you. So, Ms. Peoples, I believe you indicated you are the fourth caseworker so far assigned to this case.
Yes.
And you did have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Douglas Coleman, Coleman Douglas at the Randall County Jail.
Yes.
And did you speak to him on more than one occasion or just once?
Twice.
Okay, twice. Would the first time be when you were first assigned to the case?
Yes.
I noticed, I noted that you testified earlier that you were unable to go over service plans with any of the parents. Why did you not go over any of the service plans with Mr. Douglas Coleman or Coleman Douglas during either one of those two visits?
I didn't go over it with him because normally the parents can't work any services in jail. And normally they can just do the parenting packets.
When you spoke with him, did he indicate to you that he had some relatives that he would like the girls to be placed with?
He did.
Okay. Did he indicate whether or not they would be willing to take both of the girls?
He told me that his grandma and his mom were the only two relatives that he would have to look for placement. But his grandmother, Addie, just wanted Tanaya and Kamaya and not, or she just wanted Tanaya and not Kamaya because Kamaya is not the biological granddaughter.
And would that be a Miss Addie Price?
Yes.
Based on her representation of only wanting one child, did the department forego any home study, or was a home study actually done for Miss Price?
No, we want to keep the girls together.
And to be clear, now they're not with any kind of kin, correct?
Correct.
And so is it fair to say the department has placed a higher priority in this case, on keeping the girls together than they have with reunifying with any family members?
Well, it just hasn't been possible to reunify with any family members by keeping the girls together at this time.
So if we did reunify, it would be a partial thing. Only one of the girls potentially would be able to reunify.
That's what Cameron, he said that his mom would only take Tanaya, but we don't want to do that.
Who was the other person that he had suggested would be able to take at least one, if not both of the girls?
His mom. He gave his mom's name of Deidre Coleman.
Okay. And did the department contact Miss Coleman?
Well, when I went back and saw Cameron a second time, he said that his mom couldn't be placement because she would not be open to taking Kamaya either.
Was that something? Did he indicate to you that was something that changed? Did he indicate to you that at some point Deidre was willing to take both girls?
I believe from the first visit, he gave me those two names, Addie and Deidre. And then when I brought it up at the second visit, he told me that his mom couldn't be placement.
And were you going solely off of his representation, or did you verify this with Miss Coleman?
No, I didn't verify yet.
Have you ever spoken to Miss Deidre Coleman?
No, I have not.
Is there any indication that any of the caseworkers ever spoke with Miss Deidre Coleman?
Not to my knowledge.
Did Mr. Coleman express to you that his frustration, both in the number of caseworkers and the fact that he has provided these two individuals to every single caseworker with little follow-up?
He did not, I mean, he didn't seem frustrated to me, when I talked to him. But, also a diligent search was done, on 11/7 of 2022 for possible relative placements. And, letters were also sent to relatives on 11/10 of 22. And no one reached back out to us.
Does your case notes indicate that I've emailed at least two of the previous caseworkers, these two individuals' information, requested a home study on them?
I have not seen that.
And
Gary,
regardless,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we lost Judge Baker.
oh, okay. Well, pay attention.
Hey, while we're hunting for Judge Baker,
I looked away.
Of course, Amy.
can you hear me now, Amy? Better?
Much better.
Okay. Well, I will take over for Judge Baker now, and I will adjudicate this matter.
You were asking about Mr. Coleman, some of the family, and I'm trying to remember the name.
Deidre Coleman.
Yes, you were asking about that.
Jerry, the last thing you said on the record, I don't know if the judge was already gone, was, do your case notes indicate that I've emailed at least two of the previous caseworkers these two individuals' information and asked for a home study? And she said, I have not seen that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. And Ms. Peoples, Mr. Coleman is not the offending parent in this case, correct?
Correct.
And he's put himself in a situation where he's unable to take the girls. However, he's not the one that's placed them in any kind of dangerous position per se.
Correct.
I'll pass on this.
Okay, let's go back to Mr. Barfield, if he's got his issue resolved while I was getting my issue resolved.
I have my headgear issue resolved. I think everybody can hear me better. I already tested it. Okay, back to the ranch. Now, I believe I was asking in regards to, we were talking about the one test in August, then there were subsequent tested, and there's been no further testing positive of any type of substances such as methamphetamine.
That is correct.
Now, currently, I believe you testified that J. Ro's been in good contact with you, and that he has participated completely with his service plan. Is that also correct?
Yes.
And that has been made in order of the court.
Yes.
And so he has complied with the court's order.
Yes.
Okay. He is the biological parent, Pharaoh.
Yes.
Okay. Now he is also suitably employed.
He is.
He has provided you pay stubs.
Yes.
He is gainful. He is in a stable living environment.
He is. I haven't seen the home, but he says he is.
He's living with a relative.
Yes.
And hypothetically, if he passed the home study, would that assuage any concerns that you might have as to the home?
Can you rephrase that?
Sure, that was a bad question. In other words, we have a home study, and just since no one's seen it, at least on this call, hypothetically, if a home study was approved, would that assuage any of your concerns?
Yes, if we had a home study, that would help this case a lot.
Okay. And really, also in regards to Oklahoma, marijuana is legal in the state of Oklahoma. Is that correct?
Yes.
And J. Rowe has taken the steps to get a medical marijuana card. Is that correct?
Yes, he does have one.
Okay, and he provided you. I think that happened a few months.
Yes, he sent me a picture of it.
Now, other than now, also, it's my understanding that Pharaoh has an attachment to her father. Is that correct?
He does. Yes.
I think I said her. I mean,
it's okay.
Do you think it would be in the child's best interest to have a relationship with J. Rowe?
Yes.
And in fact, have you had an opportunity to look at any recommendations or any findings from CASA in this case?
I don't know if I have.
Let me just ask you that. in regards to, would you agree with me? That,
I lost something there, Brooks. You said in regards to, and then I didn't hear what you said.
okay. In regards to that, I'm going to withdraw that question because CASA can make a recommendation on it. And if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to.
You're breaking up again, some Brooks.
It must be my feed. That's the only thing I can think. I think I'm just going to pass the witness.
Okay. All right, Mr. Michelson.
Thank you. Mr. Trout answered most of my questions, but I do have a few. In the last hearing, I believe in February, the department had stated that Darnell Donald was unlocatable by finders. How did you locate him?
His mom provided me with his cell phone number.
Okay. And you testified earlier that you spoke to him about 2 weeks ago?
Yes, over
Okay.
text.
Okay. And was he aware of this hearing today?
He was. I told him, and I messaged him today that there's a hearing at 1:30.
And did he acknowledge that he received those messages?
He did not respond to this last one.
Okay. When you spoke to him personally, did he acknowledge that he understood what you were saying?
Yes.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Okay, and Mr. Eldridge.
Your Honor, I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right, then Mr. Trout, or excuse me, Ms. Zavala, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Peoples, you had testified that visitation from mom stopped in February, and there was some testimony that she was about 15 minutes late. Visitation wasn't stopped for that one time, is that correct?
Correct.
There was a lot of there were a lot of other things going on around that time that resulted in visitation stopping.
Yes.
The records reflect that mom was asked to drug screen numerous times since October, correct?
Yes.
And is it correct that she failed to go in October, in November, and in January?
Yes.
Those were all times when she was contacted, asked to go, and she did not go.
Correct.
In December, she couldn't even be located to be asked, correct?
Correct.
So in addition to all of those missed drug screens, was mom also repeatedly showing up significantly late to visits?
Yes.
Were the girls exhibiting some concerning behaviors after visits?
Yes.
When she did appear in February, she had been provided transportation.
Yes, she was.
And she was still late in coming out to get that ride.
Correct.
When she appeared, would you agree she threw a pretty major scene?
Yes.
So after those visits were stopped, mom was still given the opportunity to drug test after that to potentially start those visits back up.
Correct.
And in March, she was asked to go and did not go?
Correct.
And it wasn't until April 17th that she agreed to do any kind of test, which was an oral swab.
Correct.
Would you agree that the girl's demeanor improved after visits with mom stopped?
Yes.
And mom, when is the last time that mom admitted to you that she used meth?
Let's see. When I made my first contact with her, she told me that she had used 30 days prior to that.
Okay. So mom's attorney had asked you, well, didn't she get almost all the way through rehab, correct?
Correct.
So this admitting to meth use would have happened after she had done that almost all rehab.
Correct.
Moving to J-Ro, has he been very consistent with his visits with Pharaoh?
He has been, yes.
Have those visits been very positive experiences for Pharaoh?
They have been.
Is Pharaoh very bonded to his father?
He is.
And has Pharaoh cooperated with everything that you've asked of him?
Yes, he has.
I pass the witness.
All right. Excuse me. Mr. Trout.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Peoples, earlier when you were testifying to some of my questions, you stated that mom had done an OSAR and then due to continued positive drug screens was ordered to do another OSAR. Is that correct?
Correct.
And she has not done the second.
Correct.
When Ms. Archer asked you earlier, you just stated that it was correct, mom had completed an OSAR.
Right.
She completed the original, but not the second time due to positive drug screens.
Correct. She did not complete the second OSAR.
Okay. And again, you were here for Ms. Amos's testimony as far as the removal, correct?
Yes.
And this case started due to mom's drug use.
Right.
Ms. Archer asked you earlier about the oral swab that mom did on the 17th, correct?
Yes.
And that was positive also.
Yes.
Okay. And for the same substances from the beginning of the case also.
Correct.
Okay. So in 18 months, mom is still testing positive for the same substances she tested for at the beginning.
Correct.
As far as the missed drug screens and possibilities of rides, you stated earlier mom got rides to all the visits, correct?
Yes.
So we know that mom was aware she could ask for rides.
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe she knew she could have a ride to a drug screen also?
Yes, I do.
Now, mom did complete or work on some services in the case, correct?
She did.
How long has it been since mom has actually worked on any services?
2023.
You know about what month?
March of 2023. So about a year ago.
Okay. So in the first 6 months of the case, mom did well working on services, trying to get stuff done. Is that correct?
Correct.
But then since in the last year, she hasn't really worked services or done anything.
Correct.
The only evidence we have on anything is that mom has continued to use drugs.
Correct.
We also discussed a while ago when the issue came up as far as the ICPC. Earlier when you mentioned to me that the ICPC was to the supervisor stage, you were meaning the supervisor in Oklahoma, not St. Francis supervisors in Texas, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So St. Francis still has not seen that and has no preliminary results from it.
Correct. We do not.
Okay. So it is the supervisor stage in Oklahoma with the people that conducting the ICPC.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And is it your understanding, and I know you're not involved in this part of it as much, but is it your understanding that once an ICPC is initiated, due to y'all's contract with the state, you have to have an answer from that before you can decide to place or not place with the biological parent?
Yes.
Out of state. And that is what is blocking that decision being made, is waiting on the ICPC?
Correct.
Due to contractual obligations?
Yes.
I'll pass witness.
Okay. Excuse me. All right. Anybody else have any questions, follow-up questions from Ms. Peoples?
I do have a follow-up.
Okay.
You said the girl's demeanor changed after visitation, after that visitation stopped. What did you mean by that?
So the house parent, I talked to the house parent and she reported to me that the girl's behaviors had significantly improved, especially from the beginning of the case until now. I spoke to her, I believe it was in March, and she said that the girls were their behaviors were really good and they were really thriving.
And that could be due to several things, not just ceasing visitation, right?
It could be, yeah.
And the girls, your testimony earlier was that the girls expressed a desire to keep their visits with mom. Is that right?
The girls had mentioned to me that asking if they could see their mom. Yes.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
All right, anybody else have any follow-up from Ms. Peoples?
No more questions.
No, Your Honor.
All right, then. Mr. Trout, any further witnesses, or does the department rest?
I would have a couple, Your Honor. two more witnesses, just a few questions for each, just to get some clarification on a few things.
Right.
First I call, Cameron Douglas Coleman.
Your Honor, since Mr. Trout is calling my client, I'm not his attorney for the criminal purposes, but I think gotta be reminded if he does have pending federal charges of his Fifth Amendment rights.
Yeah. All right. So, Mr. Trout, are you going to get into any of those areas?
Judge, I have some questions on it. I'm not asking any questions of guilt, innocent stuff. I don't know what those are and if he knows what the charges are is the only question I have. But I have no questions as far as the incidents or anything, just simply what the charges are.
All right. So if we get into that area, then I will be sure to admonish Mr. Douglas Coleman.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Douglas Coleman, can you hear me fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've been here throughout the whole testimony, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you heard the testimony as far as what you're being held in jail for right now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have a trial date for your pending charge in Randall County?
I don't have a trial date, but the state side of the charges that I'm being charged with is the same charge that I'm being charged with federally right now. So we're just currently waiting for the state side to be dismissed so I can finish out with my time.
Okay. And when you say finish out your time, is there already a judgment against you for the federal, or are you waiting to go to a trial on the federal side?
No, it's already a judgment. I signed last year in June or July.
Okay. So you've already been convicted on the federal charge?
Yes, sir.
What was your sentence on the federal side?
It was a 4-year sentence.
Okay, that was also a 4-year sentence?
Yes, sir.
And you signed that last year, you said?
Yes, sir.
When?
In about July, I want to say.
Okay, so from say July of 23, so your sentence is set to run through about July of 27?
Not necessarily. In the federal system, I get like time credits once I get into BOP custody. Mm-hmm. And I've been here since November of 2022. So my time has been running since 2022 of November up to now. And then once I get to BOP custody, I get them time credits and everything that I've done so far.
Okay. And that's on the federal side too, your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll pass witness, Your
Honor. Does anybody have any questions?
No question, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Oh, Your Honor.
No question.
Oh, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Trout, any further witnesses?
I would call Mr. Tyler real quick. Mr. Tyler, one quick little thing. Now you've never been adjudicated as the father of Pharaoh, correct?
No.
Okay. But you don't dispute it?
No.
Okay. And we did testing on Kingston, but not on Pharaoh, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's due to you believing you are Pharaoh's father?
Yes.
And not disputing that one. Would you be asking the judge today to adjudicate you as Pharaoh's father?
What do you mean?
So to be legally adjudicated as the father of Pharaoh, is that what you would want the judge to do today?
Yeah, he's mine.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor. I'll pass witness.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Tyler?
No questions.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Barfield.
I'll just take my direct on cross if that's okay, and I'll ask open-ended questions. J-Ro, are you asking that Pharaoh be placed with you today?
Yes, if possible, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, do you believe sufficient income and means to take care of your child?
Yes.
And do you believe that your home is a suitable, safe environment?
Yes.
And have you done everything to completing your service plan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you feel it is in Pharaoh's best interest to be placed with you?
Yes, sir. Very much so.
Do you and your child have a bond together? In other words, do you love each other and get along well together?
That's my twin. That's my spine. That's my heart. That's my backbone. That's everything. That's yes.
Do you believe that would have any issues at all in taking care of this child?
Not at all.
And if you get custody, will you make sure that that you have a plan to daycare or anything like that if you have to work?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And would you already have that in place?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Tyler?
No question.
No
No,
question.
Your Honor.
No questions.
All right. All right, Mr. Trout, any other witnesses?
I forgot to ask Ms. People something real quick, Your Honor. I would ask to recall her real quick.
All right, Ms. Peoples, you're still under oath.
Ms. Peoples, the children right now are placed, the two boys together and the two girls together. Is that correct?
Yes.
If it was ruled today that Pharaoh go to his father, what is the plan with the other three children?
We want to keep the other three together. So we're looking for adoptive homes that would take all three, both girls in Kingston.
Okay. Is there a legal risk home? Have y'all looked into that?
Yes, there is one right now that we are looking into.
Okay. It hasn't been approved yet, but it's been being looked into.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, follow-up questions from Ms. Peoples?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Trout, any further witnesses?
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay, this is Department rest.
Department rest.
Ms. Zavala?
I have no witnesses, Your Honor. I would rest.
Okay, I want to take Ms. Zavala and Costa's recommendations, and then I'll permit argument by anybody that wants to do so. All right, Ms. Zavala?
Your Honor, I'll take it piece by piece. I do believe at this time, it would be in Pharaoh's best interest to be returned to his father. I make that recommendation even knowing that the ICPC has not been finalized. I believe this court has the authority to place back with a biological parent without the completion of an ICPC. Mr. Tyler has completed all his services. He's been cooperative at every turn. He was an original non-offending parent. And if I recall correctly, came pretty close to having placement back at the beginning of the case. He just needed a little more stability. I absolutely did have a concern when there was the positive test for meth in August of 23. However, it was at low levels and during a time when he was living with mother. His drug tests have been consistent ever since, showing only marijuana use. As part of my job, I've talked with both placements for Pharaoh extensively, and both had very positive things to say about Pharaoh's interaction with his dad and how important that relationship is. I do believe that he should be placed with Mr. Tyler as soon as possible. I also believe that mom's parental rights should be terminated in accordance with the evidence for all the children, as well as all the other fathers and alleged fathers and unknown fathers. As to the issue of Mr. Coleman's relatives, I have no problem continuing to explore the potential. However, I do have some real concerns about taking the two girls who are 7 and 5 and have lived together their entire lives and splitting them up and sending them to a relative that Kamaya may barely know. But that can be and is a question for another day. As to termination, I do believe that would be in all the kids' best interests. I believe I've now hit everybody.
Okay, somebody clarify for me. I was thinking at one point in time, this home study on Mr. Tyler was not only as to Pharaoh, but as to potential placement of Kingston too. Is that incorrect?
Sorry. I believe we tried to do that. Oklahoma refused to do that because he was found not to be the biological child of Mr. J. Tyler. So Kingston we were not able to add Kingston onto that home study due to Oklahoma refusing to do that. It was my understanding if that was to ever be done, they would have to finish up the one on Pharaoh and then possibly ask for another one on Kingston separately, but they would not do it together.
That's my understanding as well. And the other thing that I really got from both placements who have had both boys, is the understanding that maybe Pharaoh may need some one-on-one time, and that a split of the two youngest would not necessarily be a bad idea. So I'm making that recommendation, knowing that at this time Kingston cannot be included in that evaluation, and that this would be a move just for Pharaoh.
And just further, my client was, and I just want to make sure, because he's I'm seeing him, he was certainly willing to accept Kingston, and that's where the court's memory is, and I'm sure he still would be, but that's kind of where we were at.
Okay. I just know there was some discussion about that, and I just wanted to be sure I had the right facts about who the home study covered. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, Ms. Zavala, anything further?
I believe that covers everything from my end.
Okay, and CASA.
Not much further to add from Ms. Zavala's. We are on board with her recommendations for termination. For mom, we obviously don't take any of our recommendations lightly, but mom hasn't demonstrated initiative to change her circumstances and mitigate the reasons for removal that these children were placed in. We also are in agreement with termination for all the fathers alleged unknown. And we are also in agreement with Ms. Zavala's recommendation to place Pharaoh back with his father. I know on our court report we did state asking for maybe a home study for Kingston if Mr. Tyler was willing to, but our main point with the siblings that will remain in care is that they remain with siblings. So we would really like to see the girls be placed together with Kingston, if that's the quickest way to permanency for him. And we're just very happy to hear the progress that Mr. Tyler had made. We did have concerns about the marijuana use, but like Ms. Zavala said, he has made an effort and done his service plan. And Pharaoh is very, very bonded and very close to Jarreau. Even daycare staff have noticed changes with him if you know he doesn't get to talk to his daddy, and we really just want him to be placed back with his father. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I may have a rebuttal at the end, but
all right, Ms. Archer.
Judge, Ms. Klein has made significant work doing her services, despite not having a car. Despite going through numerous caseworkers in this throughout the duration of the case, she did get quite a number of services finished. She admitted to having a drug problem. She did seek help. And even 30 days ago, she admitted to having a drug problem, which is causing a problem, everywhere else in her life. However, the girls still want to see her. I would argue it's in the best interest for kids to see their mom. She's not perfect, but I think she clearly loves the kids and they love her.
All right, thank you, Ms. Archer. All right, then, Mr. Barfield.
Yes, briefly. One, I didn't formally close, so I probably. Also, my client has really stepped up. When this case first began, he was basically living, with another gentleman, another job. He's moved states. He's completed it to provide stability so that he can take care of his son. He's maintained steady employment, stable housing, complied with all the court orders in this case, and he is the biological father. And so I would urge the court, based on the law, to place Pharaoh with my client at this time, in this child's best interest, in taking into account not only ASA, but the item.
Amy, did you get enough of it? Okay. All right, Mr. Morales.
Your Honor, as Mr. Douglas Coleman indicated, he is nearly at the end of his sentence, if his calculations are correct. While I can see the fact that, statutory grounds do exist for his termination, in that he will have been incarcerated for more than 2 years from the filing of the case. I just remind the court that he is a non-offending parent, and he has been subject to a CPS hearing where we've had 4 different caseworkers. Both he and I have emphasized our desire to have the kids kept together, and not kept together, but kept with his family members, and that did not occur. And I understand that the department did make a priority on keeping the kids together, but it's also their job to keep them with kin. And I felt that was not attempted well enough on the side of Mr. Douglas Coleman's family. Given these two circumstances combined, Your Honor, we think it would merit maybe a PMC to the department and allow Mr. Douglas Coleman to work services and prove his merit to get his children back upon his release. And when I say children, I do know that even though Kamara is not biologically his, he has indicated to me that he would take her as well, Your Honor. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morales. Okay, Mr. Michelson, anything?
No, Your Honor. I rested and closed earlier.
Okay, and Mr. Eldridge, anything to argue?
No, Your Honor.
Okay,
Judge, may I have a short rebuttal?
you may.
As to Miss Archer's statements, it was put on the record that mom did kind of hit the ground running at the beginning of the case and get some services done in the first 6 months. Since that time, I believe it's testified to, since March of last year, mom has done nothing as far as services. The only thing that has consistently been throughout this case is mom's drug use. I understand that the girls may want to see their mom and may want visitations with their mom, but the issue remains is that all 4 children in this case, while being in mom's care when they first came in to care, all tested positive for the likes of methamphetamines, cocaine, marijuana, all hard drugs. And you're looking at children that were at the time under 6 years old when they came in, down to a newborn. As it may be in the best interest of some children to be around their parents when their parents are exposing them to those sort of substances at such a young age. I do not believe it's in the best interest to keep that relationship going. Mom has not shown that she has changed her behaviors and is continuously using those same drugs that got us in this situation in the first place. As to Mr. Morales's client, he is incarcerated. He will be for the longer than the 2-year period as testified to. And due to the nature of those crimes, I mean, we're talking about felony gun charges, ag assaults with deadly weapons, and domestic violence cases. The family members were spoken to Mr. Douglas Coleman as far as who he would like the children to be placed with. They were not willing to take both girls, and I understand there is a priority to try to keep the children with family, but they're also family by keeping the siblings together. So in that instance, it was to give the children their family, which is the siblings, and keep them together. And that is where we are. We would ask again that rights to all parents be terminated except J. Rowe Tyler at this time, and for the court to make that decision on either PMC or placing the child back with Mr. Tyler.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, then, at this time, I do find that it is in the best interest of the children to terminate the parental rights between the children and their mother, Tishana Klein, based on Texas Family Code, Section 161.001, subsection B1, the D, E, and O grounds, and the best interest under B2. I likewise find by clear and convincing evidence it's in the best interest of the child, Kingston, to terminate the parental rights between that child and the alleged father, Daryl Anthony, based on his failure to register with the paternity registry under Texas Family Code 161.002B3. I find by clear and convincing evidence it's in the best interest of the child tonight to terminate the parental rights between that child and her father, Cameron Douglas Coleman, based on Texas Family Code, Section 161.001, subsection B1, the O and the Q grounds, in the best interest under B2. I would just make comment that Mr. Coleman was an adjudicated parent prior to the department's involvement. I find by clear and convincing evidence it's in the best interest of the child to terminate the parental rights to that child and the alleged father, Darnell Donald, based on his failure to register with the paternity registry, and also the rights of any unknown father of Kamaya on the same basis, failure to register with the paternity registry. I will at this time adjudicate J. Rowe Tyler as the father of Pharaoh, and I will establish the parent-child relationship between the two of them. I'm going to name Mr. Tyler as the permanent managing conservator And I will dismiss the Department of Family and Protective Services from that case after the appellate and de novo and appellate time frames expire. The child can be placed as soon as possible with him. I'll name the Department of Family Protective Services as the permanent managing conservator of Kingston, Kamaya, and Tenaya. I'll dismiss all court-appointed attorneys from the case after the de novo and appellate timeframes expire, with the exception of Ms. Zavala, who will remain as the children's attorney and guardian ad litem, and I want to leave CASA in the case at this time. I will ask the department to continue to look at any appropriate relatives to any of these children, or of the 3 children that will be remaining, as possible placements. So not only Mr. Douglas Coleman's children or child, but, you know, we want to continue to look at any possibilities for placing kids with family. If we find appropriate family or that are willing, then we will tackle the question of splitting siblings, not splitting siblings. I just don't find that that's a necessary decision to make today. But if there is family that we thought was going to be approved to be placement, potentially placement of Tenaya, you know, I'm not ruling that out just because they wouldn't take both children. I will say, for Mr. Douglas Coleman's benefit, keeping siblings together is always very, very important, because, sir, in the normal course of life, that is the longest relationship that those two will have in their life, is their sibling relationship. That relationship typically lasts longer than the parent-child relationship, or relationship with a grandparent or a great aunt or uncle, or aunt or uncle, or a cousin, or anyone else. These children have been together their whole, well, the oldest one, okay, obviously is 2 years older, but, you know, Tenaya has been in Kamaya's life her whole life. And so, you know, that bond will continue for the rest of their lives, we hope. And it is inevitable, if we split siblings, that some of that will fall by the wayside, just by virtue of the fact that they will not grow up in the same household together. You know, they won't share those common day-to-day experiences that they have when they're together. So I want you to understand that this is not, you know, nothing against any of your family. And I understand that they may not have been in a position to take both children, but I'm looking at this as what is the long-term connection for the children. So I want to leave all those doors open, and we want to look for more doors, which is what we do. And, you know, I think we need to make sure all those stones are turned over before we start putting the kids out on tear or anything like that. So CASA, that's the main reason I want to leave CASA in the case. CASA is great at finding these folks and putting some of the pieces of this puzzle together. So, you know, we will continue to beat the bushes to see what we can turn out, you know, before the kids are placed with in a non-relative adoption situation. So, okay, anybody have any questions?
No questions, John.
All right, I appreciate everybody's patience today and patience in getting to today. and thank you all for putting in a long day. I appreciate it very much, and we will be adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Everybody have a good evening.